Quick question. What does innovation mean to you, and why is it so crucial for organizations today to embrace it? If you have been pondering about this and don't know where and how to start, then this episode is for you. Hi, my name is Rayson and I'm the host of the Raygacy Show, and welcome to today's episode where we are diving into the world of innovation with Nick Jain, CEO of IdeaScale, the leading innovation software company. And if you have ever wondered how organizations like NASA, Comcast, NASCAR, and Doctors Without Borders stay at the forefront of their industries, IdeaScale is often the force driving their most groundbreaking initiatives. As the core platform behind these global giants' innovation efforts, IdeaScale enables organizations to source, develop, and implement ideas from within and beyond their teams. Nick's journey is just as impressive. This amazing gentleman that we've invited into the podcast, his journey is just as impressive as his company's impact. Graduating at the top of his class from Harvard Business School and holding a degree in mathematics from Dartmouth, he's a visionary he's a visionary leader with a sharp analytical mindset and a passion for innovation. And today we'll explore his approach to fostering creativity, sustaining innovation in complex organizations, and what it takes to lead in an ever evolving tech landscape. Now, without further ado, let's welcome Nick into the podcast. Woo! Hey, Nick.
Hey, Rayson. Thank you for the really difficult to live up to intro. I'm going to try very hard to live up to all the great things you just said.
Well, this is all provided on your profile and also Podmatch as well. So kudos to your achievements. And man, how have you been, man? It's been a while.
It's I've been good. I'm based in Philadelphia. It's finally started to get cold. In the last few days,
Oh,
it's been down to like 0 degrees centigrade or 32 Fahrenheit for the American or international listeners out there. So getting cold now, sweater season.
yeah, I know, right? And soon y'all will be having snow. And I would love to be in such a nice country, to actually explore the nature and have a good look at Trump. No, but just kidding. Okay, but jokes aside, are you really excited about the election? I mean, even though this episode is not about election, but just asking since it's so near,
Yeah, so
like
today's actually
tonight.
election day. Today's election day
Yeah.
in the United States. Everyone's busy. I'm based in Pennsylvania, which is actually one of the battleground states. So both former President Trump and Vice President Harris have been coming here regularly to campaign. My YouTube and text messages are filled with advertisements from folks. I think, like many people in Pennsylvania, I'm just waiting for it to be done because we're tired of seeing so many political advertisements, so many conventions happening here. It ruins traffic. I think, like many
Right.
people, yes, we're just waiting for it to be done, and we're hoping that there's a good outcome and that there's not a lot of rioting or anything like that, regardless of the outcome, because that's really important. Regardless of the outcome, that democracy sustains itself and the company continues to grow and be successful as a liberal democracy.
Of course, I believe from what I've heard and what I've seen from my friends from the states as well. I've spoken with some of them, my past guests that are based in the states as well, and they are really rooting for someone. And I did hear that this someone is gonna help the economy, especially business owners. So I'm not sure how effective this person is going to be and how you know the policies that were being mentioned on papers or mentioned in live TV will be really put into papers and action as well, because this is what a lot of the folks want from the politicians in a sense. And this is something that we were actually informed about, and we are really looking forward to the results that's happening later on tonight. But of course, may the best politician win best. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm based in Singapore, so I have no direct connection with all this politics in the states or politicians in the such aspects. But I'm pretty interested and curious to know who's going to win and what's going to happen next. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
We'll find out in what is it, like 16 hours from now. Let's see how things go.
Yep. 16 hours from now, and I would like to, Nick, I'm pretty sure a lot of my followers from Asia, especially, wouldn't know much about you. So, could you share a bit about your journey that led to becoming the CEO of IdeaScale and what initially sparked your interest in innovation and technology?
Sure. So, look, my educational background begins in mathematics and physics. So, I was really
Oh,
passionate about the sciences, about technology. I was playing around in Ubuntu, and I wrote my first, piece of HTML when I was like 14 or 15, way back for GeoCities. For those of your audience are old enough to remember editing GeoCities HTML. Um,
wow.
uh, so way back when, right? I've always been interested in technology, but initially my career aspirations really focused on an academic career in the pure sciences rather than technology. But as I went through college, I realized I loved the analytical side of things, but I really like working with people. And if you want to be both analytical and work with people, business is a good way to go. So I went into Wall Street for a while. For about 10 years, I worked in Wall Street being a professional investor, investing in large multi-billion dollar private equity and hedge fund deals, right? And I learned a lot about how businesses work. I had the opportunity to be in front of great leaders and learn from them. But then ultimately, I realized, look, it's really fun being in Wall Street. You get it's a really cool job. You get to learn a lot. But ultimately, I wanted to be more impactful. I wanted to run and build a business. And so, for the past 5 or 6 years, I have become, mostly due to coincidence than anything else, um,
Oh,
a professional CEO. So the people, private equity firms or founders hire me to run and transform their companies that are ready for that next stage of growth. So I've run $100 million revenue trucking company, then a small $2 million men's shoes company, and now I was scouted to run IdeaScale. And IdeaScale is this really cool company that kind of hit three things. When I got a call saying, "Hey, do you want to come be CEO of IdeaScale?" It was the stars aligned. There were three really cool things for me personally. Number one is I really like software. Software is so powerful. It enables people to do things that were just impossible 10 or 20 years ago, right?
right.
And just in general, technology, right? Like technology broadly defined is so powerful, it transforms human lives. I like that. Number two, I like software as a business. Um, because I think software businesses, when they are well run, are extraordinary at creating value for their customers and for their employees and for their shareholders. There's not a lot of $1 trillion industrial companies out there, but there's a dozen now $1 trillion software companies. Um, the third thing is innovation specifically. Throughout my career, I've always loved the idea that good ideas should win and good ideas should move into reality regardless of whether they are from junior people or senior people, whether they're based from somebody in Asia or somebody in France or the United States. And that's what IdeaScale software really does. It enables best ideas to win. It creates an idea meritocracy rather than a hierarchical organization, and breaks down some of those barriers and silos. And that's such a cool thing for me personally, because that's something I struggled with throughout my career, that like, hey, it's the most senior person's opinion that matters rather than the best idea. And the fact that I get to work at and lead a company where ideas take the forefront is such a cool personal experience for me, and so rewarding to show up to work every day.
Right. So you're saying that what your company does is that you all will go into the companies and share and spread, I would say, them, let them share the ideas and then see how you guys can actually work on the ideas that they have and how you can transform the company with that
What and so
in
we
that
don't
sense, right?
work on people's ideas. So we have our software. You can think of it like TikTok or for ideas. So think
Right.
of it like a social media platform where users are contributing their ideas, and then ideas are being upvoted and downvoted and ranked by an algorithm, and the best ideas rise to the top. So instead of the CEO's ideas rising to the top because he or she's the CEO,
Okay.
the best idea. And
Right.
so if you think about like TikTok, a funny dance video from someone in Malaysia can be the top ranked video in the entire world because that was the video that all of humanity collectively loved as the most entertaining. Now we do that with idea. Our platform does that with ideas, and those could be ideas as silly as what snacks do you want in the fridge to ideas as serious as what should be the chip design for our new semiconductor.
Right. So with those ideas with the highest vote, for example, wins, and then after that, the company will work on that idea and then bring it
Exactly.
to life.
Exactly.
Understand?
Literally
Got
that.
it. Got it. Wow, that's really cool. Oh wow, what a cool concept. I mean, like for a company like you guys to help uh, companies like NASCAR. I was like, wow, NASA. Wow, it's simply amazing. And uh, just wondering, right? For you, like how did your background in mathematics and your experiences at Harvard Business School shape your approach to leading an innovation focused company like IdeaScale?
Sure. So in science, one of the things you learn really early on is that there are good answers, and it doesn't matter who the answers come from, right? Whether they come from
Right.
the dumbest student in the class, the smartest student in the class, the professor. You know, if you for anybody who pursues a science degree, you learn that there's good answers and there's bad answers, there's right answers, there's wrong answers, and it doesn't matter who the answers come from, right? Like in my study group, sometimes I
Right.
was wrong, sometimes I was right, and you let go of your ego. You care about arriving as a team at the right answer, not worried about whether Nick came up with the idea or Jessica or Tim or whatever. Um, good innovation is really like that. Good innovation is not about the ego of the individual who came up with the idea, but rather about the organization or the team advancing the best idea together. So that I think my science background really well aligns with the idea that innovation is a team effort, and B, it requires people to set aside their egos in favor of doing the right thing. And that's sometimes that's I think science trains you really well to do that. My efforts at I think business school didn't train me so much on the innovation or software part, but
Right.
business school I think taught me that there's all these sections of a business. There's an HR section, there's a finance section, there's an operations section, and you need to develop skills in each of those. Coming into business school, I'd had a lot of experience in, let's say, strategy and finance, but and a little bit in operations, but I had almost no experience in the HR side of things or in the marketing side of things or sales side of things. So learning that there's those portions of there's those skill sets that existed, it created a platform or starting point for me to go learn those skill sets. Now business school was not enough for me to become an expert in any of those skills, but knowing that
Right.
those skill sets existed and what resources were out there, it enabled me to begin a starting point. Right, you have to know that the Chinese language exists before you go start learning Chinese, for example.
Yeah.
So I needed to know, hey, HR exists as a function. Here's the areas that people need to good at. And then I went and took advanced training in those courses kind of on my own time. And that's, I think, what enables us to run IdeaScale really effectively. And a short plug for IdeaScale, we're a mid-sized company, yet we are way, way more profitable and entirely bootstrapped versus most technology companies. And the reason is because we run ourselves really effectively as a business, which is both good for our employees and our shareholders, but also means we're more stable and better run for our customers too.
Right. Just wondering how big since you said it's a mid scale, right? So how many employees do you guys have
Sure.
in
So we've been around
IdeaScale?
15 years. Yeah, we've been around 15 years. We're not a startup. And today we have about 100 employees across 8 countries, I believe.
Oh, 8 countries. Which 8 countries are there?
United States, Mexico, Brazil, India, Bangladesh, Japan, South Africa, Switzerland. Am I missing anybody? And if
No,
I
it's
didn't say,
eight, right?
yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. And you're thinking of moving to Southeast Asia as well, like Singapore, Malaysia, kind
So
of thing.
we haven't made a hire yet, but we hired a salesperson based in Bangladesh about 8 or 9 months ago to focus on the Southeast Asian market. So we are selling to Southeast Asia already as of like 8 or 9 months ago, and we actually our website already supports the Vietnamese. Our software supports pretty much any language, but our marketing website, for example, started supporting Vietnamese and maybe Thai as of 9 months ago or two as well. So we want to be
Wow.
accessible from a language and skills perspective, from a language perspective. And over time, we'll continue to expand to more languages, both in Southeast Asia and globally. Singapore obviously is a little bit easier because English and Chinese kind of work well there.
Of course. Yes, yes, yes. We are multicultural, lingual as
Singapore's
well.
political system, by
Yeah.
the way, I have many friends from Singapore. I've always admired it being kind of a stable, multi-ethnic society,
Oh
multi-ethnic
yes.
and multicultural society.
Yeah, yeah. And have you been to Singapore?
I have not. It's on my list of things to do, but no, I've not. I've all my vacations tend to be towards like very outdoorsy places where I go do like
Oh.
climb mountains or go diving in oceans. I think I'm saving Singapore and more developed countries like France or Spain for when I'm older and won't be able to do the outdoor vacations as much. So I'm probably like 30 years away from visiting Singapore because
Oh
I've heard
man.
that's such a nice stable place that like I'll visit it when I'm older and want to be inside a city.
Ah, damn it. No, if you were to come, right, not 30 years later, but if you come sooner, let me bring you around because we have places for you to hike. We have places for you to enjoy as well, in terms
Okay,
of
I
scenery
will
and all.
ring you.
Yes.
Let me. I have to
Yeah.
get permission from my wife before I travel anymore. But I will put Singapore higher on the list of things so it's not 30 years from now.
Yes. Yes. Okay,
How much
but
is
okay.
Singapore? How much is the Singapore Department of Tourism paying you to advocate for Singapore tourism?
Ah man, it's zero. But because my love of this country, for this country, man, I would love my guests to come to Singapore and me bring them around and all, because I had some of my past guests that actually came to Singapore and we met up as well. So yeah, and it's something that I would love to do it with you as well, and many other guests that have been on my podcast as well. And uh, Nick, I just want to ask you, right? Who were some of your early mentors or influences, and how did they shape your leadership style or strategic vision?
Sure. So that's a really tough question because they asked me this when I was in third grade, and everyone said, their dads or their moms or some famous sports player, and I really struggled when I was 7 years old to answer this question, and I still struggle today. But
Oh,
if I really had to choose, I would say there's probably three or four people. My high school math teacher, Mr. Kennedy, number one, because he taught me that precision it matters. So he forced me to be really good at not my he forced me to improve my writing because my writing was really ugly. And this is funny, it's in math class, right? That my forced me to focus on
oh,
details,
interesting.
drawing pictures properly. And you wouldn't expect that in a math class, right? But just focus that
Yeah,
precision and being detail oriented really matters. And that you're never really a master at a skill till you've mastered the true details of something. So I would say, so Mr. Kennedy, number one. Um, um, Number two would be there was a what is it? There was a I took an in college. There were I'm blanking. I don't remember her name, but I audited a course on feminist essay writing, and I knew again I
oh,
wasn't an English major and I'd never done anything in feminist studies before, but it was and I was coming from a small town, so you can imagine that I had never been exposed to feminist theory before, and the professor was just such a deeply she was a good teacher, understanding that I was coming from a different background, but I was there to learn. And somebody who, that's a professor who did not attack me for not being as smart as the other folks or not having as much background in that area, but rather encourage
right.
me to grow and learn in those. And that's a really good environment when you, and where the reason that impacts me in my business experience now or my business leadership is because I realize that when someone steps into a new job or new company, they're there to learn, and it's really important that I create a warm, inclusive atmosphere that allows them to excel rather than criticizing them for being bad or not understanding, because like everyone's bad on day one when they start a new skill, and that's okay. The important thing is
Yeah,
they are there, they showed up, and number two, they are open-minded enough and willing enough to learn. um, and those are probably the two kind of most influential people. Everything else has just been accumulated. My philosophy in life is everyone out there, whether they are rich, whether they are poor, whether they are famous, whether they're scientists or athletes, artists, has something to learn from, even if I disagree with them.
right.
So rather than saying that, hey, there's a few inspirational leaders like Elon Musk or whatever, rather than saying that, I say, look, there's everyone in life that I meet, I try and learn a little bit from, because every human being is valuable and has something to teach me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it's like what you mentioned, everyone started with a new subject, a new thing. They won't be a master immediately. It's a disaster before they became a master, right? So I agree with you on that. And I uh, I would say that these two people that has like Mr. Kennedy and this female professor that has impacted you so much, do you still keep in contact with them? Just out of curiosity.
So both have passed, unfortunately. So but
Oh,
I did keep in touch with both of them.
I see. Okay, understand. And I would like to ask you, like, you know, like IdeaScale actually works with some of the most respected names across various industries that we've mentioned earlier on during the introduction as well, which includes NASA and Doctors Without Borders, right? So how does your team actually customize the platform to meet such diverse needs?
Sure. So the core platform, there's two things. Number one, the core software itself is applicable to anyone, whether you're an energy company, whether you are a South African government, whether you are a major US global corporation, semiconductor company, whatever. The core problem that we're solving is universal, which is how do large organizations innovate? Because that's hard. So there's this universality. The second thing is how do you customize that universality? And we take the approach that many well-run software companies do, that there's a lot of things that you can customize to your processes. So like a really silly example is you can change the logo at the top, right? If you go into any software, whether it be an accounting software or a CRM, you can change the logo to your own company or the color scheme to your own company software, stuff like that. But then also we've enabled the real crux of the software is ideas are important, and it's important to both collect ideas and then keep those ideas private in some form. Sometimes the ideas are public, but sometimes you want them to be private. And so the thing I think that we've done really well is created a very easy to use but customizable set of systems that allow you to decide who gets to be part of your idea community. So whether it be just your employees, whether it be your shareholders, whether it be the entire public world, maybe it's just people who have a PhD, we've made it very easy for you to decide who gets to participate in your community and how they get to participate. And so for NASA, they may not want Nick Jain to participate because Nick Jain does not have a PhD in aeronautics. They just want PhDs in aeronautics. And NASA could select, or any scientific organization, not use NASA, let's use a big pharmaceutical company could only allow people to participate who have PhDs in biochemistry or biology, but those could be PhDs in India and Singapore, in France, whatever. Whereas a big fast food chain may want everyone in the world to participate because almost everyone in the world can eat burgers, right? Or at least eat vegan burgers. So
Right.
our software allows you to really customize who's in your community and how you want to select for them and how they can participate. Or you can just open it up to everyone. And I think that's something we've done really, really well because it's easy to use, but incredibly powerful and customizable.
Oh wow. Okay. This sounds like Facebook ads in a way where you can customize who are your target audience and where are they from and things like that.
Yeah, but
Similar.
we're not running any ads, to be clear. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Of
But
course. Of
yeah,
course.
yes. Just, again, like the core of what we do is we are a social network for ideas. And that
Yeah.
can be a private social network inside a company or a public social network, the way like TikTok is or Facebook is. And so just all of the customization that you could expect from, a mature social app like Facebook or TikTok or Instagram are features that you can generally find in IdeaScale with a little bit more security
Right.
because we're obviously dealing with sometimes a lot of private and sensitive data, so we're trying to have a lot more security in terms of who can see what.
Okay. Well, this is interesting. And Nick, earlier on in the podcast during the introduction, I also asked the question of innovation to the audience. So now I want to ask you this as well. So, Nick, what does innovation mean to you, and why is it so crucial for organizations today to actually embrace it?
I would say innovation to me means being better tomorrow than you are today. And that can be on a product, that can be in a manufacturing process, that can be in HR, how you recruit people. Innovation is getting better tomorrow than you are today at something. The reason why innovation is important is kind of twofold. Number one, deep down in our kind of almost a spiritual level for human beings, we want to be better. We want to be better tomorrow. That's why people, run, Ironmans or super marathon or ultra marathons. That's why people go to the moon. We want to be better, right? As a species
Yep.
and as individuals at something, whatever your passion in life is. That's number one. Innovation addresses kind of a deep human need. Secondly, at an organizational level, there's a need to innovate, because if you're not innovating, your competitors are, right? If think about, if you're not coming out with new products or making your products cheaper or better, your customers will go to your competitor, because your customers are, your competitors are making a better product. They're not saying, hey, we have the best phone today. They're going to make a better phone tomorrow. That's why whether you are Apple, whether you're Xiaomi or in China, or whether you're Samsung in Korea, you're coming out with a better phone each year, because if you're not coming out with a better phone, you're going to fall behind your competition, and your competition is going to win. So, and that's true not just in the private sector, but in the public sector too. If government agencies don't deliver value to their constituents, to their citizens, then ultimately those government agencies get shut down or restructured, and other agencies take over. Citizens demand a change. So it is there's a deep requirement that any organization continue to innovate, or it will become obsolescent, or it will obsolesce reasonably quickly.
Right. I agree. I agree on that. It's just like how Nokia, Motorola, Siemens actually became obsolete in the space of phones,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, like even BlackBerry as well, right? They
Yes.
were striving so big, so massive in the handphone space, and then next moment, pop, they're gone, just like that. The bubble was being burst by Apple in a way or another, and everyone were getting the craze for getting the Apple and other brands that came up after that as well. So yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And innovation is often easier to start than to sustain, right? So how does IdeaScale help organizations keep their initiatives alive and impactful over time?
I want to pause and go back to something you just said. Innovation is easier to start than sustain. And that's something so true, right? Almost all
Right.
startups are innovative, because that's why they came into existence. They're trying to do something. Small companies have to innovate, because if they don't innovate, they die. Whereas Apple could probably stop innovating if they wanted for like 10 years or 15 years, and they could be fine.
Yeah.
So when you get big and successful, it's very easy to say, I made it. I can be a little, lazy around that. But that works for a little while, and then eventually, if you're too lazy for too long, you get crushed by the competition. So starting innovation is easy. Young organizations are almost innovative by nature or innately. Large organizations struggle to innovate. The way you become innovative when you become large and successful, the way you become and remain innovative, is you make it an actual core competency of your business, right? In the
Oh,
same way, so a lot of organizations, they've realized this is a real problem, and they can't just say we are innovative and stick in their values. They have to do something about it. You can't just wake up as an individual. You can't just say I want to be in shape and do nothing. You actually have to do something, right? You want to have to sign up for gym membership. You have to buy a pair of shoes. You have to go run every day. At an
right.
organizational level, I think that there's three things that an organization needs to do to sustain itself. Number one, you need the right people who actually want to innovate. If you are hiring people that don't want to do anything new, you're not going to do anything new. Number two, you have to have the right processes. And a good example is a lot of large organizations have started creating the chief innovation officer role, where they realize, hey, we need somebody to actually focus on innovating. Otherwise, we won't do it. And then the third is you need the right tools and technology, right? It's great if you want to go in shape. It's a lot easier if you have a pair of shoes or if you have access to a gym. So companies that are trying to sustain innovation or are succeeding at remaining innovative tend to have those three things, the three-legged stool of what. Number one, they tend to have the right people. Number two, they
Yeah.
tend to have the right processes and incentives. And number three, they tend to have the right tools and technology. And if you do all three of these things, generally you tend to be reasonably successful at having a sustainable innovation program and innovation culture.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that in terms of these three things that are the key to actually sustain the organization and to make sure that the people actually follow through and thrive together with their innovations as well. And I would like to ask you, what do you see as the biggest challenges organizations face when it comes to cultivating a culture of innovation?
I think there's two areas where they really fail. Number one is you create incentives to not innovate. So that number one is incentives, and number two is having the technology and tools. So um, number on the right incentives, I think a lot of large organizations actually create incentives where people don't want to innovate, or if they want to innovate, they leave. That's because when you try to innovate, you're necessarily experimenting, and a lot of experiments fail when you try something new for the first time. And a lot of large organizations, they make you look stupid, or they demote you, or they fire you when your experiments fail, and they don't really reward you when things succeed, right? They take your great idea and then they make a bunch of money off it, right? So it's really bad
Yeah,
because what's your incentive then to innovate? If you screw up, you get fired. And if you succeed, they take your idea and all the credit and all the money and fame that goes with it. So why would you
yeah,
do it? Right. So a lot of companies actually need to fundamentally change their incentive structures so that there's lower downside risk of failure, that people are instead encouraged to fail, to experiment and fail continuously, but in small, manageable ways, but then also are rewarded for their extraordinary successes. That's on the incentive side. And then second is the tools and technology. Look, I'm a software company. This is what I do for a living. And so it's what I'm about to say is a little bit self-serving, but I think but the honest truth is a lot of organizations, they say we want to be innovative. They hire these right people and then they say, go innovate. That's not really good. You need to give people tools to innovate. It's like, imagine if I told you again that, hey, go get in shape, but I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to give you a gym membership, and I'm not going to give you a pair of shoes. Yeah, you can still get in shape running barefoot outside. But it's going to be a lot and it might be 40 degrees in the summer in Singapore. Wouldn't it be a lot easier if you had access to an air-conditioned gym and I gave you a pair of shoes and a coach? So a lot of companies don't actually give their innovation programs the right resources. They just say, go innovate without any tools and technology. And that's so silly. Imagine if you told your finance department, go do finance things without an accounting system or without having access to what the accounting best practices are. That would be crazy. And yet that's what a
right.
lot of companies do for innovation programs.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah, can you imagine, like, you are Apple, for example, right? And then you hire people, you got the right people, right? You got the right pips, and then you tell them, oh, just innovate, but you do not give them the software, you do not give them
And not just
anything that
software,
does bring
like
trust.
tools, right? The software could
Yeah,
be, a workspace, an office. It could be a budget. You need resources, right?
right.
But yes, the funny thing is, good companies actually do this really well. They actually give their innovation teams or their R&D teams really powerful tools and technology and resources. Companies that are kind of half-assing the innovation effort just say, go innovate. And that's really bad. Unfortunately, it does happen. We see it all the time. And that's a great recipe for your innovation program not doing anything. Basically, you'll have it around for a couple of years, it won't produce any results, and you'll shut it down and you'll have wasted a bunch of money, time, and effort. If you're going to do something, do it right. And that's true for anything in life. Do it right, do it well.
Yep, I agree. Makes sense. Like, you got to actually not just fail in experiments, but you got to keep failing, because I recently read from Diary of CEO by Steve Bartlett. So he was saying that, a lot of people, their businesses actually fail because they do not make enough failures of experiments within the company itself. So that's why they actually fail within the first 2 to 3 years, in a sense, and they do not want to innovate from there. And that's why it kind of led them to actually go downhill, because they are afraid of those failures will, cost them more resources, cost them more time. But somehow or other, I realized that Thomas Edison actually made a lot of failures, right? A lot of failed experiments, in a sense. And in the end, 200 plus times later, he realized, oh, that's how we shouldn't
Make a
do
light bulb.
those, yeah, do those stuff in order to make that light bulb, to light it up, in a sense, right? And yeah, it's same goes with Colonel Saunders, to actually, right, Captain, right? And look at him, he made don't know how many donkey times of failed recipe or failed door knocking, and then after that, in the end, he became so popular even until many years later when he's passed on. KFC is still around. It's one of the biggest fast food franchise in the whole entire world as compared to Macs and Burger Kings and whatnot, in a sense, right?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%,
Understand.
right? Like failure is often, or sorry, tremendous success is often preceded by lots and lots of little failures.
Yeah, I agree. But you know, Nick, I'm pretty sure a lot of these companies, when they listen to this, they're like, man, but I'm afraid of failure. How would you make them embrace this kind of failures, embrace this kind of failed experiments, and then to actually go towards, improving on their company and their processes, and also becoming much more successful in a sense?
Sure, you're absolutely right. A lot of people and organizations are afraid of failure, and that basically boils down to two reasons. One is your emotional fear of failure, and then the second is the practical consequence of failure. I don't think I have great advice on how to deal with the emotional sense of failure. That's something that I think other people are better equipped to give advice on. So I won't give advice on that. I'll give advice on the practical consequence of failure. Some companies only take, or some organizations only take big bets. So when those big bets fail, you're screwed. You lose hundreds of millions of dollars. You have to fire people. You have to shut down initiatives. That's a bad way to fail. What you should do is run small, low cost of failure experiments. So eliminate the cost of failure.
Hmm.
So I'll give an example. At IdeaScale, we don't run, in our marketing department, we don't run big flashy marketing campaigns that either work or don't. That's a bad way to run it, because if you run a big marketing campaign for a year and it fails, you just wasted a year of time and money, and then you have to fire people. Instead, we run a lot of small experiments where if a campaign fails, it's okay. We wasted a couple weeks of time and a few $1,000s, but if it succeeds, we scale that up 100x really quickly. So our
Right.
cost of failure is very low. So people aren't afraid of failing because, hey, no one got in trouble. It's a small amount of money. It's a small amount of time. So that's, I think, the practical advice I would give for getting rid of the fear of failure. Make your experiments have a low cost of failure. Make it so that it doesn't matter if you fail, because the experiment was small enough that it was you get, if it fails, there's no benefit, there's no real harm. If it succeeds, you can scale it up 100x, and you learn something along the way, and that learning helps inform each subsequent experiment along the way. And that's not just true in marketing. That's how we also run product. A lot of small incremental changes that if they're bad, we just go back and just cancel that change out. We reverse the software upgrade, for example.
Oh, 100%. I agree with you on that. Wow, this really makes sense. And for those of you who are tuning in, take notes, especially on whatever Nick has mentioned about embracing failure. I'm pretty sure you're gonna learn a lot. And you're gonna practice them as well, and it will help you out along your entrepreneurial journey as well. And Nick, I want to ask you, how does IdeaScale help organizations source ideas internally and externally, and what unique insights have emerged from this process?
Sure. I think the core part of our software that makes it powerful is you have a community of people, whether those be internal people like employees or external people like customers. Our software makes it easy for those people to participate in your community. We don't build your community for you generally, although we help you build it, and sometimes we'll do some advertising for you on your behalf. But it's really the responsibility of our customers to build their communities in the way that they like them, inviting the right sets of members and getting them to participate. Once you have the community in place, then I think the way we help that community become more dynamic is the way we build our software. We've tried very hard to make our software do two things really well. Super easy to use. So whether you're good with technology or not good with technology, our software takes seconds to sign up and log in, right? It's as easy as signing up for TikTok. Um, and
Right.
we wanted to make it very easy for someone to participate. And number two, we've made it a social system. So if you look at kind of any good social media company, what they've done really well is that they've made it possible for people to interact with one another and build off one another, right? Whether it be comments, votes, iterations, discovery features, like how does YouTube show you cool videos that you're interested in? And we've made it very easy for that cross-pollination of ideas and that social interaction to happen. So that's, I think, where we've done a really those two things. Like, it's easy to use the software, and number two, it encourages you to cross-pollinate or interact with others' ideas. And that makes it really cool stuff, ideas and opportunities emerge for our customers. I think that there's three insights that I would say that have emerged from us having run this business for a long time. Number one, good innovation can come from almost anywhere. Sometimes it's from the junior employee on the other side of the world and not the CEO. Number two is good ideas naturally rise to the top. I think people underestimate the ability of the crowd to discern between good ideas and bad ideas. In the same way that there's great cat videos and bad cat videos, right? Not all cats are cute. But both algorithms and people do a really good job of separating good ideas from bad ideas. And that way you don't have to have a set of really expensive executives sorting out good ideas versus bad ideas. Let the power of the crowd do it. And there's a ton of academic research on this in the area called predictive markets. So that's number two. Good ideas naturally rise to the top and bad ideas naturally sink. And number three is, when you run an effective innovation program, the diversity of ideas it expands incredibly. Like, the executive team may only be thinking about 3 or 4 areas of focus, whereas when you open up the universe of potential innovation to pretty much anything within an organization or company, you may get ideas for something that no executive was even thinking about or aware of, right? Like, how many banks were thinking about cryptocurrency? Or how many bank executives were thinking about cryptocurrency in 2009? No one was. But there were a lot of junior employees that were investing in Bitcoin, as early as 2009, 2010, right? So imagine if those bank executives had the opportunity to listen to their employees, but hey, there's this really new cool thing that could disrupt the banking system come along. But they didn't, because ideas were coming from the top down rather than from the entire community. So that's what I mean. The diversity of ideas expands exponentially if you open up the aperture of where those ideas are coming from.
Yeah, true. Especially when you are not just focusing on hierarchy wise, you get to listen from people like the Gen Zs these days. They brilliant ideas as well. Yeah, and then when they mention about certain things, and the CEO or whoever is in charge of the project gets to do whatever that these Gen Zs have to mention about certain things. Yeah, it could work in a way or another. We'll never know, right? So yeah, and it can be a low-cost failure experiment in a sense, right, as well. So yeah, I agree. And I would like to ask you, right, in your experience, what are the key ingredients for transforming raw ideas into actionable, successful projects?
I'd say you need 3 things. Number one, the idea needs to be good and exciting. Bad or unexciting ideas don't get done. So, like, work on a project that somebody's excited about. Number two, find an executive sponsor who's both excited about the idea as well as the resources to put behind getting the idea done. And number three is, make an idea bite-sized. I think too many people take on huge projects or huge ideas, break it down into pieces, and make each piece very doable and actionable over a short time horizon. No one wants to work on a 5-year-long project. People want to work on a project that, hey, we work on for a month or 3 months, get the project done and released, and and then we'll work on the next phase of the project. So break big projects or big ideas into smaller ideas and release them along the way.
Makes sense. And can you share, like, are there any examples of standout ideas that originated on the IdeaScale platform and led to meaningful change or advancements as well?
Sure. So I don't have access to my customers' data, and so I'll give an example of a customer that allowed us to share an idea, and they didn't allow me to share their name, so it'll be anonymous. But one of the biggest fast food companies in the world, some place you've probably eaten, they're all over the world, right? They needed new menu ideas for what they should put on their menu. And they have professional chefs in-house, but the professional chefs are coming up with kind of the same ideas. They said, let's go ask hundreds of millions of people around the world, hey, give us ideas for what our new burger should be, or our new taco should be, or our new chicken fingers, right? They wanted ideas for whatever that new food item should be. And so they asked everyone in the world, and everyone in the world contributed ideas to what that new menu item should be. They voted on the ideas. They commented on each other's ideas. They may have said, look, this burger's great, but we need to change the sauce, or we need to change the bun to get rid of sesame seeds, or whatever it is, right? And then ultimately, the best idea, the company had a lot of ideas, and they took the best 4 or 5 ideas. They looked at what was practically doable, and because they had to do some food safety things and some scientific things along the way. But then they actually put that menu, and you and I got to eat that item at a restaurant at thousands of restaurants around the world. That's, I think, meaningful change. That's a really cool way. Like, it was an idea that came from thousands or hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And that was an idea. Then we all actually got to eat at, potentially millions of people around the world got to eat that really cool a burger.
Oh, wow. Was this recent, or was this quite a while back?
This was a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. No wonder it sounds a little bit familiar, but let's keep them anonymous for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and wow, love it. Wow, interesting. And I'd like to ask you, right, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of trends that you have noticed in the innovation space. So can you share with us, like, what are some trends you're seeing in the innovation space? And are there any specific industries that are driving the next wave of change?
Sure. So for innovation as a field, similar to marketing or finance, I think 3 things are happening. Number one, it's emerging to become its own field rather than being a subdivision of somebody else. It's rather than becoming, part of the product department or the R&D department. That's why there's a lot more like chief innovation officers, a title that didn't even exist 10 or 15 years ago. Now a lot of companies have chief innovation officers. So it's becoming its own field. Number two, within that field, people are defining, hey, here's what's good and here's what's bad. It's not just everybody doing their own thing. So, for example, about a year ago, something came out called ISO 56001, which is the standard for best practices for how innovation works. ISO are also the guys that decide how big the USB drives are, or what the encoding for Bluetooth is. But these folks have come out with a really well-researched standard on what's good innovation, what's bad innovation, how do you achieve good innovation. So it's becoming a lot more standardized in a good way. People are discovering there's good ways to do things and bad ways to do things. And number 3 is, I think these efforts are starting to yield impact. So whenever you start a field of something, right? It could be a new field of semiconductors, a new field of marketing. It takes a while for people to realize the benefit, but now more and more people are starting to see the benefit of these innovation efforts. The companies that are actually dedicating effort to innovation, or the government organizations, are seeing better benefits. And that's really fun to see, especially when you're a participant in the industry, saying, hey, we made a difference. Like, I helped, whether or not they were a customer of mine. It's nice to see that your field in life is making a difference.
Right.
I think industries where this is becoming, where innovation is becoming more relevant. I'll give one, kind of dumb example, and one, or not dumb, but obvious example, and then one kind of interesting example.
Okay.
The dumb or obvious example is in semiconductors, right? We've just seen some extraordinary waves of innovation from folks like NVIDIA and TSMC that have upended some of the old legacy players like Intel, right? Intel was just taken off the S&P 500 after 40, 50 years of being there. So the semiconductor and chip industry, not just because of AI, there's even separate from AI, there was an entire revolution going with what's called GPUs versus CPUs that has been going on for about 20 years now. But you've just seen such extraordinary innovation happening in semiconductors over the last several years. That's kind of the obvious example. The less obvious example is in nonprofits. Nonprofits, they're a little bit slower moving. They're a little bit more resource constrained than private sector organizations. But you've seen kind of nonprofit organizations, including government organizations, actually realize, look, hey, the needs of our customers have changed, and we need to meet them where they are, right? A really simple example is, at least in the United States, up until a few years ago, you basically, if you wanted to renew your driver's license, you had to go in to the office and sit in line for 6 hours. And that's everyone in the United States hates going into the Department of Transportation or the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and to renew your driver's license. And because you have to sit there for 6 hours during a workday, you have to go to school or you have to go to work, and you can't just sit there for 6 hours. And now a lot of DMVs have made it very easy for you to just do it online. Well, for transition one was they started making you mail in PDFs, like fill out a PDF, print it out, and mail it in. But now a lot of them are just letting you do it online. And that's because these government organizations and nonprofits have realized the needs of their customers have changed, and therefore they need to evolve or innovate in order to continue to be effective and remain relevant to their to their constituents or customers.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, I agree. And it's just like Tesla as well. Tesla is really a game changing the whole industry for automobiles in a sense, right? You you can auto drive in a sense in the States, but not in Singapore, unfortunately. But yeah, you can do a lot of all this stuff, and yeah, I I, I love it. Like what you have mentioned earlier on, and you also mentioned about AI as well. And AI is rapidly evolving. So how do you see AI playing a role in the future of innovation management?
I think AI, for my specific field, right? AI is going to do what it's done to a lot of other fields, which is it's going to become a co-pilot, right? So it's going to be a human being combined with an AI tool working together. And fundamentally, that's not that different than the software revolution we went through, 20 years ago, where previously to do a lot of things, it was just a human being. And then suddenly it started being a human being who was working within a piece of software. And that could be an accounting software, that could be a marketing software. And that's happening and AI is basically the next iteration of that. Whereas rather than just a human being working with software, it'll be a human being working with software that has AI embedded that does two things. Either it does all the stupid things automatically for a human being, or second, it helps the human being think in a much more intelligent way. So for my specific software, for example, one of the features that we're coming out with in I think in January is an AI that helps you brainstorm. So it's not just by itself. The AI is going to partially give you a few ideas, but it's going to help you come up with better ideas. We already had version 1 of this released about a year ago, but version 2 is really powerful because it's going to come up with its own ideas from scratch, which is so cool.
Oh, wow, this is so cool. It's just like, you are using ChatGPT and coming out with all the brainstorming of ideas about certain things that when you key it in, like, oh, how to say, for example, start a company, and then after that, pop, it comes out this, for example, in a way or another, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think we've implemented in a little bit better way because you don't have to ask it questions anymore, which makes it more powerful, right? Because we've made it a little bit more. The term is we've made it a little bit more agentic, which is meaning it's coming up with its own actions or its own ideas, which is agentic is the fancy modern term where AIs act without requiring human direction or without human instructions.
Oh, interesting. So that means it will just come out with their own based on keywords, for example, or
so I don't want to. We haven't officially announced it, but the basic idea is. So I don't want to reveal too much of it because it's going to be an awesome feature.
Okay.
But the basic idea is this AI tool is going to look at what your organization's goals are and what other humans are talking about and mix it together in kind of not random way, but in a unique way, and say like, okay, given the organization's goals and given what other people are suggesting, let's come up with a unique permutation or set of permutation of ideas that are interesting and relevant to what these people and this organization is trying to achieve, with a little bit of what's called randomness or stochasticness thrown in order to make the ideas creative. Because that's the challenge with doing AI and idea and innovation as well. Innovation requires a little bit of randomness and a little bit of risk taking, and you have to be to get that into an AI, which is at the end of the day, it's a robot. Robots do the same thing over and over and over again. To throw in creativity into a robot takes a lot of skill, and that's I think one of the things that we're trying to do really thoughtfully and carefully here.
Okay, wow, I'm really excited when I hear that. I was like, wow, I'm really looking forward to this, grand launch of this interesting product that you guys gonna have in January. So for those of you who are tuning in, stay tuned for this really innovative project and product that IdeaScale is going to launch as well. And Nick, I would like to ask you, right, if you could give one piece of advice to other CEOs on building a culture of innovation, what would it be?
Innovation starts from the top. So if the CEOs themselves are not innovating and coming up with new ideas, then nobody else is going to lead by example.
Makes sense. And how do you see the future of IdeaScale evolving over the next few years? And what big goals or milestones are you aiming for?
Sure. I think there's two big things IdeaScale is doing over the next couple of years. Number one is we started expanding globally. A year ago, we were really a North America focused company. Today, we have people, as I mentioned, 8 countries, and
Yeah,
we
eight
have
countries.
customers all over the world. So that's number one. We want to be a globally relevant and globally impactful organization. We're about a year into that journey. Number two is that we want to be the full innovation suite of software for our customers. So what our core software, what that we became famous for, is an idea management software. It helps you collect these ideas and organize them. A year ago, we launched a whiteboarding software, and in a couple of
Oh,
quarters, we're going to launch a project management software. But basically, we want to be the software company that any chief innovation officer comes to, and we can give them everything. Think of us like, again, using the gym analogy, the gym machine company that you can buy weights from, you can buy shoes from, you can buy a bench from. When any innovation department or innovation officer needs great software, we want to be able to give them software that addresses all of their needs. And that's part of our product vision.
oh wow. I'm really looking forward to you guys expanding even more. I mean, not just in North America, other parts of South America as well, but also in Asia, Southeast Asia. We are really looking forward to have you in Singapore as well. And um, as we're coming to the end of the podcast, Nick, I have last two questions for you. One of it will be, I'm pretty sure when you started out, you would have read books, or even while you're in this career right now, you're also reading some books, right? So, what books, resources, or habits do you recommend for anyone looking to stay sharp and innovative in today's fast paced world?
Sure. So I'll give a habit and one book recommendation. So the habit is all continuous learning. I spend between 30 to 60 hours every single month taking advanced courses and new stuff so that I'm always sharpening my skills. And this could be on AI, this could be on marketing, this could be on machine learning. I'm taking actual courses, even though I'm CEO, to get smarter and better because I realize I need to get better every day because the world is getting
Right.
more competitive every day. My competitors are getting smarter every day. So that's number one. Invest in continuous learning, no matter what level or no matter what title you have in your career. Go take courses, go read books, stuff like that. The specific book that I would recommend is called Valuation by Aswad Damodaran. He's a professor at NYU. And it's a book that requires some high school math, but no fancy math or anything like that. And what it teaches you is how do companies create value for society? And how do you figure out if your company is creating value or destroying value? And that's very important because there's so many companies that the way they're being run actually is worse. Everyone's worse off: the customers, the employees, the shareholders. In fact, if you're running a private sector company, you want to make sure that it creates value within the capitalist framework, and then that it divides that value to everyone, whether it be your customers, whether it be your shareholders. And Professor Damodaran's book does a phenomenal job at teaching you analytically how to figure out how if your company is good or bad for society.
Oh, wow, this is interesting. This will be one of my read lists as well. Oh, thanks for sharing. What an incredible book. Well, man, and I truly agree with you. For those of you who are tuning in, you got to continuously improve on yourself and learn as much as you can, regardless whether is it on marketing, is it on AI, or even in business entrepreneurship and things like that. You always have to improve on yourself and learn as well. And finally, Nick, if you had to distill the essence of innovation into a single phrase or motto, what would it be?
Innovation is difficult, but absolutely necessary to grow and to survive.
Wow, amazing. Wow, thanks, man. Wow, love it. I love this. I love this. It's so true. Innovation is definitely need these two things as well. And man, I really appreciate you for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for dropping so many golden nuggets and value bombs into this podcast. And I learned so much. I was like listening to this, like wow, it really blows my mind in a sense. And Nick, last but not least, where can my audience find you on social media?
Sure. So for IdeaScale, our website is ideascale.com. Our software is completely free for teams less than 100 people. So whether you're an individual entrepreneur or a team within a big organization, come check us out. Completely free software. Takes less than 30 seconds to set up, entirely online. You can log in with your Google or your Facebook logins. Second is if you want to get in touch with me personally, the best way is LinkedIn. My name is Nick Jain. It's at the bottom of the screen. I respond to 100% of messages. So feel free to DM me.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. So, well, with that, I would like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to the podcast. Uh, man, for those of you who have been supporting the podcast, really appreciate you guys. We have reached 88 countries. With all your help, with all the big names that have came on board, as well as Nick that just came on board as well. And yeah, stay tuned for the next episode of the Raygacy Show, where we're gonna have another amazing guest that's coming on board as well. So with that, good night or good morning, whichever country you're in, and see ya real soon. Okay, take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, Rayson.
You're most welcome. Wow.